Okay, so here we'll be creating the JavaScript date that we've seen in the slides that we learnt about today. So for this, I'll begin with by creating a variable name. I'll call this date. I'll be making use of the first method, which is the new date element get element by ID. So we already have an ID name of span1, which is this one right here that I've created before. So I'll be making use of this particular element in terms of rendering the date. This will be span1 dot inner HTML. This will be equal to the $sign date. So on our web browser, we should have this to be the current date is Thursday, July 7, 2022. The hour here is 11. The minute is 56 and the second here is 30. So this particular date here actually represents the exact time our code executed. That's our JavaScript code. So this is the exact date you would get when you make use of the first method. So for the second method, I'll call this variable date1. This will also begin with the new keyword and the date. And now within this bracket, we would have up to 7 items for our dates. So we'll begin with the year. So the year will be 2020, and I would have the month of October, which is 09. So I said before that January actually begins with the integer value of 0, and December ends with the integer value of 11. So if I should have this to be 11, and we have 25th, which is Christmas Day, we already know month, or no, the minute and hour here would have 12 hours, 30 minutes, and 45 seconds. I would also give this milliseconds of 700. So would output this out to be span 2 dot inner HTML $sign date1. So here we would get the actual specified date that we put out there. And this date actually is for the 25th of December 2020. Wow, surprisingly, it was a Friday. Can't even remember. So here we have Friday, December 25th, 2020. The hours of 12, the minutes of 30, and the seconds of 45. Now, if you notice very well, the code that we have here, that's this one above, has actually changed from 56 or whatever second it was now to 58 and 45 seconds. So if I should reload this again, you can see now it changes to 11:59 and then 33 seconds. So that's why I said that the very first method is very dynamic. It actually makes changes depending on when the code has been executed. If I should reload this again, we should get a new time. And now we have 11:59 with 55 seconds. So that's how easy the first and the second methods are. So before I leave this method, one thing you should note here is that you can actually have as little as 6 items here if you don't want this to be up to 7. And so printing this particular date would actually give us exactly the same time we had before. As you can see, we have the Friday, December 25th, 2020, with the hours, the minutes, and the second. So here is still the same because the millisecond doesn't appear on the screen. We can still go down even further by removing the seconds. And by doing so, we would only have the year, the month, the day, the hour, and the minute. So if I save this now, we have this to be Friday, December 25th, 2020, the hours of 12, the minutes of 30, that's 30 minutes. And because we did not specify a seconds here, we have this to be 0 seconds. We can still go down even further, and with 4 items, this would give us the year, the month, the day, and the hour. So here we have this to be Friday, December 25th, 2020, with only the hours of 12. The minutes and the year, the minutes and the seconds are not being specified. So they will be rendered as 0, 0. We could still go down even further, and with 3 items, we would only have our month, year, and day. And you can see here is just Friday, December 25th, 2020, with no particular hour, with no particular minute, with no particular second. Everything is just 0. We could still go down even
Sir,
further.
um,
Yep.
question, sir, please, before I forget.
Okay.
Yes, sir, we use index number of 11 for December because
Yes.
January is 0.
Yes.
Why is that not applicable to the day, like the 25, instead of, like, why is it not applicable to the day? Why is it that, like that?
Okay. I didn't get your question very well. Please come again.
Okay, my question is this. January has an index number of 0,
Mm-hmm.
so December has 11.
Yes.
Now, why is that not applicable to the date, like the day?
Okay.
If today is 5th, for example, what is 4th?
Okay.
Since, yeah, that's what.
Okay. Okay. I get your question now. So I'm guessing that the beginning of a particular day, according to the way we know the date, is actually one, right? Yeah. So
Yeah,
mhm. So I'm not really clear if JavaScript begins that as 0 instead of 1. But then you know what? Let's just get to see how it is here. So I'll be changing this to 2022. And today is 7th, right? So this means that if I should put this to be 7th, okay, or rather, we are in the month of July, which is 06 here. If I should put this date to be 7th, we should actually see Thursday. Let's see if we have Thursday. Okay, so you can see that it's not applicable to the day itself. So here the 7th still gives us Thursday. So peradventure it began with 0. This particular Thursday here would be giving us as 06. So let me change this to 06. That's 6th of July. So you can see that 6th of July now gives us Wednesday. So peradventure it actually started with 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 instead of 1, 2, 3, 4. Then today would actually be 06 and not 07. So I hope that answers your question.
yes, yes, sir.
Okay, so let's move on. So I said we can go down even further to 2, and for this I'll be taking out the day. So we'd only have the year and the month. That's 2022 and the month of July. And now we should have, yeah, Friday, July 01, 2022. So that's what happens when you only have the year and the month. And you can see that by default, unlike the rest of them where we did not set the hours, minutes, and seconds, they all begin with 0. Even when we did not set the day, it begins with 01. So you can see that by default, it actually begins the indexing here with 1 and not 0 as we have it in other concepts. So that's how this particular method actually works in VS Code. Now, mind you, before I leave here, we cannot have only one value to be here. Meaning, now you might think that having 2022 here is actually having a year. That's the year of 2022. But don't be mistaken, you cannot have a single value here. You must always begin with two values and up. That's the year and the month. The moment you have just a year, like this 2022 here, inside this parenthesis, this 2022 will not even be rendered as a year. It would rather be rendered as a millisecond. So what this would be is that it will take this as plus 2022 milliseconds. And so if I save this now, you can see now that it begins January 01, 1970, which I said is the standard starting date of any machine. I think, yeah, mostly laptops and smartphones, they actually have this date by default. If you do not set any dates at all, or any time zone, they have this date by default. And now you can see the date here is now Thursday, January 1970. 2022 has been converted to milliseconds, and milliseconds here is 1 hour, 0 minutes, and 2 seconds. So this actually means that um 100 or 1,000 milliseconds is actually going to give you half of an hour. So here we have 1 hour and we have 0 minutes and 2 seconds here. So this is why you shouldn't have only the year inside this parenthesis when making use of the second method. You should always have the year and the particular month. So this would give us 2022 and September 1st, 2022. So the next method we'll be seeing is the milliseconds method, which we've just seen that already. But let's just go over that quickly. So this will be date 3 be equals to new date. Within this bracket, you can have as much milliseconds as you want. So I'll give this 10,000 or a million milliseconds. For this span 3, I'm going to create a tag for that too. This will be $sign date 3. So I would say the milli, I won't call this a date per se. Okay, or I'll just say the date from this milliseconds is. So this would actually add this milliseconds to the standard starting date, which is 1st of January 1970. This will be span 3. And if we check now, we have the date from this milliseconds is actually Thursday, 1st of 1970, 1 hour, 16 minutes, and 40 seconds. So the 1 million milliseconds has been converted to seconds, minutes, and hours. So that's how you have it with the milliseconds method. Now, the last and not the least methods of creating an object is by making use of the date string. So the date string here would actually convert a date that is in string form. So I'll just copy this. I'll call this date 4. And this date here would give this in a string form. You already know how a string is with the double quotes or single quotes. And inside the string, we would begin with a particular date. Okay, the span here would be 4. Span 4. So here would have April, let's just say 15, 2020. And here would now have the particular time we want. So I'll call this 11:45 with, let's just say, 30 seconds. So this particular string date we have here will be converted into an actual date object and would be rendered on the browser. Okay. Oh, seems like I didn't connect the span here. Okay. So this here is span 4. And now we should see our date. So our date here is Wednesday, April 15, 2020. We have the hours of 11 minutes of 45 and the seconds of 30. Now you can see that by default, each of these dates actually has GMT plus 1, which is the normal standard for West African time. So I'm guessing the reason why this is because my own computer has already been set to actually represent time in the West African standard time. So if someone else's out there has a different time zone, it would actually show a different GMT here. So this is a very brief way we can create a JavaScript date, very simple and very easy. So the next thing I'll be looking into is the date methods. And so for this, we'll only be making use of the very first method here. So here we have our date, which has been created already. Date object. Okay, and now we have just one date here. I'd also comment all of this, don't need them. So without wasting time, we'll convert this into the string method. This will be to string, and this right here should give us a different kind of date. Okay, actually it doesn't change anything here. We still have this to be Thursday, July 7, 2022. Then 12th, that's the 12th hour, the 14th minute, and the first second. So you can see that this actually changes even after we've reloaded this page. So the toString here doesn't really give us much difference. So let's try another method, and that will be the toUtc string. Okay, so this particular one takes the GMT and everything out of it, and it just gives us this the standard UTC format of the date, which doesn't involve a time zone at all. So here you can see the date here is very brief. Thursday 7th of July 2022, 11:14:49 seconds. Next we'll be seeing the ISO string. And this ISO string gives us a different kind of, you know, representation here. So you can see it begins with the year 2022, the month of 7th, and today, which is 7th. And it also has the time here to be 11:15 and 28 seconds. Now the .603z is actually an ISO standard. I really don't know what this means, but then I guess it means something. So it the .603 here, well, might actually mean something, but just be rest assured that the date and the time actually starts from here to here. Exactly. And I think the last method we have here is the to date string. Okay, and this one just gives us the actual date with no time. Thursday, July 7th, 2022. So you can see how all these methods actually change the display of our dates. But nevertheless, you can actually make use of the one which is most suitable to you. So if you want to display just date, you can use this method. If you want to display the date and time but in a shorter version, I would prefer you use the ISO method. But if you want to display the date in the original version, that's with the GMT and with everything, then you would use the string method. So before I leave this phase, if I should type this to, you can see all the different methods actually appear here. There are up to like, 10 of them. But for the sake of time, we've only just tried 4 of them. So you can try the rest of them and see the output you would get. So lastly, we have the get and the set methods. And we would begin with the get date method, which actually obtain, or they actually get information from that particular date object. So I'll be making use of the first get method we have, which is the dot get full year. And this should actually get us only the year within our date. So you can see the current date here is 2022. So this gives us the year we have within that particular date that we've created. It's very, very easy, very simple, and very straightforward. The next one would have is get month, and you would assume that this would give us the month of July, obviously. But here, the month wouldn't be July, but it would rather be as a number. So we should have 06 on the screen. Yeah, and we have that to be 6, which represents the month of July. Next, we'll be seeing the get underscore date. This should give us the date also. And today's date is 7th of July. So here we have 7th. So you can see that the index for the date and the index for the month, they are not the same. For the month, JavaScript begins with 0, but for the date, JavaScript begins with 1, which is the original way we have our normal, dates within every month, from 1 to 31st, or 1 to 30th, or for February, which is from the 1st to 28th. So that's the third one. We'll also get the hours for this date. And this will give us the exact hour. So this should give us 12, since we are currently in, 12 o'clock something. Yeah, this is 12, the exact hour. We have the minutes. The exact minute right now currently in my own time is 20 minutes, and you can see that right here. That's in the bottom right corner of my screen. 12:20. Next we have the seconds. So this one we might not be aware of, but then this would actually tell us the exact second we are in right now, the moment I save this. Wow, we're currently at 2 seconds. Hmm, that's quite early. So that's seconds. So I guess we've seen the full year, the full month, the date, the hours, minutes, seconds. We could also see the milliseconds. For the milliseconds, we have that to be 288 milliseconds. Let me reload this again. We should have 943 milliseconds now. Wow, milliseconds counts really fast. So the last two we'll be seeing is the get day and the get time. So for the get day, would actually get the day we are in, which is, Thursday. But the Thursday here will be represented as an integer value. So this is actually the fourth day of the week. And lastly, we have the get time. And this would give us the time in terms of the milliseconds. So here we have, I think, probably a billion. Okay, it's probably more than a billion, but then this is the entire milliseconds we actually are in right now. So I'm guessing this actually starts from the um you know 1970 or so, but just know that it actually gives us the time in terms of the total number of milliseconds we have within the particular day. Okay, yeah. So this particular milliseconds we have here is for ever since today started. So these are the milliseconds we have put together. And if I reload this, this should also increase. It has increased also. So I guess that's that for the get date methods. Okay, so before we move to the set date, I should type the dot get. You can see that it's actually a lot more than we've actually tried out. Actually quite a lot here. So trying all this out would actually give you different types of outputs. So the next one we'll be seeing is the set methods. And this particular one can actually set a particular value within our date. So we'll begin this with the set full year, and I'll be setting our full year from 2022 to 2019. Okay, so let's try printing out the date. So I'll be making use of the second HTML element. That's this one. I'll uncomment this out. So now after setting the date, I'll be printing out the date itself. Okay, so you can see that the date for today has now changed from July 7th, 2022 to July 7th, 2019. So this is how you can actually set a particular year within your date object. So I don't think we'd need to print this out. And hopefully this should still work. Yeah, so we still have July 7th, 2019. So the next thing we can also apply here is by setting the month. Me, I'll set it to the most favorite month of the year, the month of. So this now is December 7th, 2022. So now you can see that we now have our current date and our current month. I mean our current day, but the month here is different. So from July we have December here. So this is actually how you can manipulate your date object by actually changing different parts of this date. So we could also change the date also, and to do that we use the set date method. Today is 7th, but I'll be changing this to 11th. So now we are currently changed this to July 11th, 2022, which is rather a futuristic date and not the present date we are in right now. Next, I'll be setting the hours. And the hour we are in right now is 12. Well, I'll be traveling to the future to 16. Now we are currently having today's date, but the hour here is 16, rather to the one we had before, which was 12. Since the current time now is 12:28, we now have this to be 16:28. And you can also guess that we can also set the minutes and the seconds equally. So the current minute now is 28, and I'll be setting this to 45. So we currently would have 12:45, which is the minute we'll be entering to in the next 23 minutes. We'll currently be at this particular minute. So the last things we can set is the seconds and the milliseconds, which is very simple too, nothing different. The seconds, setting this to 45 seconds. Now we are currently in the current date and time for today. The only difference here is that we've set the seconds to be 45, which is not true. So if I should reload this now, it still remains 45. Lastly, the milliseconds. 700. So even this will not be displayed. Okay. So the milliseconds I just changed to has actually affected the seconds. And you can see it's currently affecting it. And okay, we still have one more, setting the time. So this particular set method would actually add a particular number of milliseconds to the standard date of January 1st, 1970. So I would add 700 milliseconds to that date, And you can see now we have January 1st, 1970 at 1 hour, 0 seconds, and 0 minutes. Let's see if I what happens if I increase this. You probably would have an increase here too. Yeah. And now it has increased to 1 hour, 11 minutes, and 40 seconds. So I guess we've come to the end of date and time class today. It was a very, very easy class. I believe it was easy, very simple, very straightforward, not difficult at all. So hopefully that is that with dates, and I hope we were able to see how we can use the date, display it in different formats, and also manipulate the dates to the way we actually want them to be. So thank you, and for the next demo we'll be having the JavaScript math.